Hey, hello, it's Shannon from Bitcoin Bankers again, and if you've been liking what you're seeing and you're a new subscriber, welcome aboard. Please like and share and spread it around and subscribe, get more subscribers. Bitcoin Bankers, we're all here to make money the safe way, to avoid scams and expose scammers, and basically make sure that we're using our money wisely and getting good information out on the web, because there's so much FUD and FOMO and fear and all sorts of crazy things out there. So welcome to the channel. If you're new here, thank you for subscribing. You're always welcome. I don't do ads here. I don't pump things. If I find something that's a good idea, or I find a good channel, I'll refer it on and put a video on it. I've done one or two of them already. Just one other thing too, guys. If I did an Electronium video, and some people are putting up their own affiliate links. Please don't put affiliate links on my videos. If you have a story that you want to share and you found some information, you can put that on. That's no problem. But if you're just going to come along and post affiliate links, I'm going to delete them. Okay? I'm not a whiteboard. I'm not a public board. This is my channel. If you want to pump your stuff, go to your channel and pump it. Okay? That's easy said. Okay. Today we're going to look at some of the dangers of smart contracts. Okay, now I'm not against smart contracts. I think the technology is really good, just like blockchain, just like cryptocurrencies. But there are some things that are going on out there that are just starting to be birthed, and they're really concerning me when it comes to small companies, small people running businesses, or people running small businesses, I should say. And there's an opportunity coming out in lending cryptos, and any kind of lending, please always be careful. And they're going to start using smart contracts. Okay, now smart contracts, if you don't know what they are, I'm going to go through them. I will try to keep this relatively brief, but there are some things I have to go to, and this is a very important message for everyone. So please watch, please like, please subscribe, understand where I'm coming from. It's only for this information is for you to consider. Okay, look further into it. Personally, I did 3 years at Griffith University in Brisbane, or 4 years in law, just studying law. But I'm actually a qualified engineer, and I'm about to embark on a master's degree in computer science as well, with cybersecurity. That's coming up. So at the moment, though, I'm here doing this for you. Let's get into today's subject, and that is just some dangers around smart contracts. Okay, so smart contracts are basically written code as a protocol that issues a request and response based on terms that are written by coders and cryptors in IT. Okay, they are used in a similar to coins, or the intent of coins, or cryptocurrency coins, to be decentralized and to cut out middlemen. Okay, that's the argument. Now, I'm using this just as one particular website, but it's blockgeeks.com/guides smart-contracts. Okay, so I'll put the description in the link below, as well as the description of another article that I'll be using. Okay, now I'm going to run through this kind of quickly. I don't want this video to be too long, but I have to use as much information as I can, and I hope that you guys understand it. Now, this document goes through and explains what smart contracts are. Okay, so let's have a look. Smart contracts help you exchange money, property, shares, and anything of value in a transparent, conflict-free way while avoiding the services of a middleman. That's their big pitch. Transparent, conflict-free, I dispute that, and avoiding the services of a middleman. We're going to actually see that that's not 100% true. Okay, so the best way to describe smart contracts is to compare technology to a vending machine. I think this is a really bad example, but let's go have a look. Ordinarily, you would go to a lawyer or a notary, pay them, and wait while you get the document. With smart contracts, you simply drop in Bitcoin and into the vending machine, or i.e. the ledger, and your escrow, driver's license, or whatever drops into your account. Also, smart contracts not only define the rules and penalties around an agreement in the same way that a traditional contract does, but also automatically enforces those obligations. Here is my big issue. Defines the rules and penalties around the agreement, and also automatically enforces those obligations. Okay. Now, the argument is, okay, let's have a look at this. They've written it this way. an option between parties is written as code into the blockchain. The individuals involved are anonymous, but the contract is the public ledger. No, the contract is a code protocol. It's recorded on the public ledger. Okay, a triggering event like expiration date or strike price is hit, and the contract executes itself according to the coded terms. Regulators can use the blockchain to understand the activity in the market while maintaining privacy of individuals' actors' positions. So a big thing about blockchain, big thing about all cryptocurrencies and all these sorts of things is the decentralization, anonymity, security, and transparency. Great qualities that we don't see in a lot of institutions, which is why there's this big change is going on. And as people start to understand and see what's going on with crypto, this is the kind of revolutionary phase that we're about to go through over the next 30 years. It'll probably be a lot quicker, but as it kicks, you're going to see some big changes. Now, here's a popular comment used by Vitalik Buterin, who is the programmer of Ethereum. Okay, Ethereum is a blockchain. It uses a cryptocurrency called Ether and allows other currencies to be used on that blockchain as well. The Ethereum blockchain offers basically unlimited potential when it comes to instigating technologies for contracts and business and finance on this blockchain. Okay. So he goes and explains that a smart contract approach, an asset or currency is transferred into a program, and the program runs this code, and at some point it automatically validates a condition, and it automatically determines whether the asset should go to one person or back to another person, or whether it should be immediately refunded to the original person, I put that in, who sent it, or some combination thereof. So maybe partially fulfilled contracts. In the meantime, the decentralized ledger also stores and replicates the document, which gives it a certain security and immutability. So that's true. That is good. It's secure. It's also unable to be changed because it's recorded on the blockchain. Okay. Now there's a number of examples provided here. This one is to do with rent. You can go through the blockchain, paying your cryptocurrency. You get a receipt, which is held in a virtual contract. I give you the digital key, which comes to you at a specified date. If the key doesn't come on the blockchain, come on the time, the blockchain releases a fund. If I send the key before the rental date, the function holds it releasing both the key and the fee. Okay, so it's kind of if this, then that. That's how it works. That's what it's based on. Okay, if this happens, then that will happen. Now this is classic logic-based computing. Request response. Okay, that's how these things work. That's how coding and the responsive coding works. Okay, you can use smart contracts for all situations that range from financial derivatives to insurance premiums, breach of contract, property law, credit enforcement, that's a danger. Financial services, that's a benefit. Legal processes, that's dangerous. Crowdfunding, I think that's fine. So here's essentially what the code, a basic code for it looks like, okay? So you have function, approval, address, that has the details, returns, and it's basically coding. It's a program basically on how this will automatically respond to given commands with values and times. So when one specific issue or particular part of the code is met, it will respond with the opposite or responding element of that contract. Okay, so look, it's a little bit complex, but it's just a if then this. That's how it works. That's the best way to think of it. But this raises a lot of problems. Okay, now they provide areas of smart contracting, such as like for governments to avoid rigging in voting. I think that's a great idea. Might be a little difficult because the downside of that is, how do you verify yourself in that smart contract? It would mean that the blockchain that's using or the contract that is being written will have to be connected somehow to databases with everybody's information on it. Okay, you'll have to verify it with driver's license or some form of identity that proves who you are, so you can't go and vote twice. Okay, so that's the big issue that we're already having. Can we get around that with smart contracts? You have to wait and see. In management, yeah, great idea. Let's have a look. Blockchain not only provides a single ledger as a source of trust, but also shares styles and communication and workflow because of its accuracy, transparency, and automated system. Ordinarily, business operations have to endure a back and forth, waiting for approvals and this sort of thing. So that's where blockchain is going to help. Reducing time, okay, and things that may lead to independent processing, may lead to costly lawsuits. Well, I think you're still going to have that, and I'll show you why. And then it goes to a case history. Then it goes into more mobiles, cars, real estate, healthcare, and it gives you a description of how these are going to work. Smart contracts are awesome. Oh yeah, well, good. So here's your big element. Speed, yeah. Safety, that depends. Backup, okay. Well, it will provide a backup to an extent. Trust, autonomy, accuracy. Accuracy is debatable. Okay, as you saw, the smart contract is I really don't want to understate this, but or overstate it. They've given you a really basic form of a smart contract there. Smart contracts can be very difficult, especially when it comes to property. Any contracts, or buying a car, okay, any contract that requires specific conditions to be added to the agreement requires you to have to get a new coder, and I'm going to go through all these other issues, okay? Now, there has been a case, apparently, where the first house sold via a smart contract has been completed, okay? That has been done, and that's the claim. But I just want to bring this up now. Here are my questions and here are my issues. Let's have a look. Okay, does it really eliminate a middleman? Well, here's the thing. In order to do coding and codes and rely on codes, you're going to have the smart contract as a code, but you're going to need a layman's script so you can understand what you're actually reading. Not a lot of people can read code. Okay, real estate agents, I doubt, can read code very well. Lawyers can't read code very well, I'm sure. What about judges? What about your average business owner? Yeah. You're going to have to rely on someone to write these codes. Now, will there be standard form contracts written in code? Will they allow for changes in special conditions of the contract? Okay. Will they recognize the rights and duties of each person properly? Okay. Will the coder, the person writing the code, be skillful enough and legally mindful enough to be able to put in the right conditions that allow a balance of power for both parties? This is what we have to be careful of. These are the big issues, okay? So, who pays to create the contract? If you go to a real estate agent when you want to sell your house, well, you still have to get it on the website. You're still going to have to need someone who knows how to create the contract. You're going to have to pay for someone to either write the contract or pay for the services that the real estate person has done to get those created and stored on a database. If you need any changes done to it, you're going to have to hire someone to come in and make changes to that contract as well. So who's paid to create the contract? Are we hiring extra IT people to come and write these things in? Who maintains them? Is there a database? Is that database secure? You know, obviously it's connected to the blockchain, but you know, who's writing these things? How can you be sure that when you go in to buy a house that the code that the smart contract written in code that you're agreeing to is the same as what you're reading on paper, if they even provide that? So you see what I'm saying? There's some difficulty there. Okay, can they renegotiate contractual conditions? Do smart contracts allow for renegotiation? Or are they standard form? That means, you know, it's just the contract's the same for everyone, you know, and you're able to put in. Now, there is talk that you're able to actually specifically design these contracts the way you want them. But that's going to cost money, isn't it? You also need a lawyer who needs to understand that the contract that you're signing digitally is the same as what you're reading in its layman paper term. Okay, so there's even more trust having to be put forward, because if it doesn't work, what recourse do you have? Can you go to court? When you go to the courts will actually incur more expense now too, because you're going to have a group of independent IT specialists that will go over that code, as well as the lawyers. Then they'll have to both interpret that and bring that all to the judge. That's more time, that's more money, that's more services. So I don't think they're really thinking this through. So they're going to show you all the gleaming, shiny stuff about this. But I'm showing you the back end of it, how this is going to actually be implemented, how the possible problems that are going to arise. Okay, so let's say they enforce the rules and penalties of the contract without an arbiter or decision maker such as a judge. Okay, so we don't need judges. You enter into the contract, you fulfill your obligations, you put the money forward. Let's say you're using Bitcoin. What happens if you put the money there and the next day, before the time runs out or the other person has responded, that your Bitcoin goes down? Suddenly you don't meet it, it's going to be refused. Okay? That means you're going to have to put more in to start with or more in to meet up with it. And if you don't meet the time requirement, what happens? Is it going to just cancel on you? Then you have to pay to get it redone, or you might have to pay fees, or you could incur penalties. How are those going to be written into the contract? How does the contract balance the change, the fluctuation in prices? Again, these are things that are not being discussed. These are things that are not being entertained by the average person who's talking about smart contracts. Okay, so cancellation of the contract upon completion. If you both successfully complete it, that's good. What if it cancels due to the fact that one of you has not met the terms? Again, you're going to incur penalties. If you're a small business, you can't afford to keep going through the same rigmarole 2 or 3 times. If it stuffs up, it's costing you money. Okay, now, yes, your Bitcoin will be refunded to you, but then you have to put it in again. And I guarantee you they'll have a service fee on it. Do you think they're not going to put fees on these? Okay. Does a new one need to be created each time? Well, look at the case of the rental on this page here that we were looking at. This rental agreement. Let's have a look. This example here talks about rent. Okay. Whoop. We don't want that one yet. Do you have to do a new contract every time you pay the rent? What if the amount that you hold there goes down over time, and you need more to pay your rent? You're getting paid in crypto, or you're getting paid in certain money. It actually could be costing you more long term. Okay, you might have times where it goes up. You're putting less in. Would you say that balances out? Is that the way you really want to work a contract? The benefits of that, though, is that if you have your bond in a smart contract, that's where it will work. You won't have to apply to get your bond back. It'll just be all agreed. Bang, away you go. If in Australia we have to pay a bond, which is usually 4 weeks rent, plus a deposit, and so that's locked away. So in case you can create any damage, it's repaid back to you, repaid to the person, and you get back what is left out of that. Okay, so just have a look at those examples. There's a website. Okay, participants must rely on the coder to ensure fairness and balance of power between the parties encoded into the contract. I was saying this before. A person who writes the contract should have an understanding of legal terms, okay? Because the contracts that I showed you before, they're very simply stated. Okay, they're really not considering and we'll look at this soon, they're not considering the amount of issues around an offer. What defines an offer? What defines acceptance? What defines consideration? Okay, these are general elements of a contract that defines that the contract is real. Okay. Participants must rely on the encoder to ensure fairness. I've read that, I just did that one. So again, you'll need a lawyer. You'll need someone who writes code, or you're going to have to go and learn to write code yourself and understand that what they're putting in is what's actually there. There's a lot. When it comes to trust, you're going to just have to trust the person that you're entering into the engagement and the code with. Who wrote their code? Was it a family member? Was it someone else? I mean, how can you really trust it? Automatic enforcement of a contract, such as credit, can cause hardship or undue financial errors and loss. Okay, so we've discussed that one with if you've got a small contract with another business, especially with lending, it can cause a lot of problems. Okay, so that contract will be enforced if you don't meet it. Let's say you're 3 days late or 2 days late with your payments. You know it's going to be there. You've borrowed money. You've entered into a smart contract. You've given them a security. They've given you some money, okay, because it's a lending contract. And then what happens if you're late because someone hasn't paid their bill? It cancels automatically. You can't just call up the computer or the code and say, look, I'm going to be 3 days late. Can you just put a hold on that until I get it? No, it's just going to cancel. You could lose a contract. You could lose agreements. It makes your credit rating look bad because you're not paying on time according to that contract. then you're in an even worse situation because now you can't get loaning off them and you can't get loaning off the bank. So it's actually doing you more harm. All these automated services. You're going to have to make sure you have that money. Okay, and if that flows down the chain, it flows down the line, there's going to be some serious problems going on there if money's not coming in on time. Okay, there's going to be more penalties. And who benefits from penalties under a contract? The person who enforces the contract. Okay, now I'm going to give you a little example here. There's a company called Veritasium that they've come out reasonably recently. They use crypto tokens. Okay, the token is used for people who don't understand Veritasium. I'm going to explain how it works. Okay, because there was a fellow Arcane Bear who was asked by one of his subscribers, how does Veritasium actually work? Well, he couldn't answer. He said, oh, it's very complicated. It's not complicated. Okay, Veritasium is a company that will offer lending to small enterprise or medium enterprise people who want to engage in business. When you go to Veritasium, they will issue you a coin called Veritas. Okay. That coin will be used. So you go to Veritasium and say, I'd like to borrow some money. They say, yeah, sure, you can enter into a smart contract, but first we need to actually make sure that you are viable. Okay? Because you've been rejected, you might have been rejected by a bank or something like that, you go to these guys and they'll lend you cryptocurrency. So you go to Veritasium and they say, well, we have to make sure that you're on board. So you pay a certain amount and we'll give you our Veritas coin, and that Veritas coin will be used in our data cruncher, because they have a software program that you put all your accounting information into, and it will crunch that out and see whether you are viable for funding. So the Veritas coin, or Veritasium's coin, will be used for that data crunching service. Okay. Once that comes out and they find that you're viable, they will give you the funding, but you have to put something up. Okay. You have to give them something. All right. So then they will give you the funding. Now, let's say that you have gone through all that and the time comes where you're going to be a couple of days late. If you don't fulfill that contract, Veritasium can enforce penalties against you. Now, if you're a small company and you've got 3 of these contracts, we don't know what these penalties are. They're written in code. You know, unless you have a paper layman's term contract that you can understand, and you have a lawyer and a computer person verify that. Does it sound like it's cutting out middlemen? Does it sound like it's saving you money? These are the things you have to be careful of. And I'm not saying Veritasium is a bad company. I think they've got an interesting structure. But I don't trust what's behind them. And they're not the only ones. Populous is very similar. PayPal, very similar. They all operate on these things. And I'm not judging whether they're a good coin or a bad coin. I'm just looking at the model behind the smart contract. That's all I'm doing. Okay? And I think it's worth your while to understand that these complications are there. Okay? So let's try and get through this a bit quicker. 7, I've done that one. 8, if there's a dispute or further legal action against a party for erroneous coding. Okay, well, if there's a problem with the code, if there's a bug, small entity versus large company in court. Most courts are actually reluctant on interfering into contracts. Okay, sometimes they'll go an equitable route and return you both back to the positions you both started in, and they'll make sure of that. Okay. Now, on the company side, so if you're Veritasium and you sign up a bunch of people who are technically end up being bad credit, that's bad for you. Your investment, your company loses, you're losing money. So from Veritasium's point of view, if they're the company, it can be troublesome for them. It's going to be expensive for them as well. Okay. And that's bad for people who hold the coin. It's bad for the company. So both sides need to be careful of this. Okay. Okay, the time and explanations of logical computer-based understanding for a court requires increased costs. So I said that before. You're going to need people to come along and examine the code that was used as the contract before when it goes to court. They're going to have to all explain it. They're going to have to explain that to the lawyers. The lawyers have to explain that to the judges. Both parties have to sit there and agree and find out what actual terms. And the way that the code is written, it's actually kind of missing certain elements of that anyway. So that's that. Okay. Clear benefits. Let's get on some positive stuff. It speeds up transactions. Absolutely. Offers more security, provides disclosure, and of the exchange according to the contractual terms. Absolutely, that's great. Downsides? Well, in some situations, they're more time consuming. In some situations, we have to consider if they're even relevant. If you go to the Three Amigos that was done recently on the JSNIP channel with Cliff High and all that, Cliff High sits there talking, he explains for a good 5 or 10 minutes how you would use a smart contract to buy an ice cream. And the process is ridiculous, it's complex. And time consuming. The way he explains it makes it sound like it would take you quite a considerable amount of time just to buy a bloody ice cream. When I can go down now, I swipe my card, bang, that's it, or I hand over a note, it's done in 10 seconds. 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Use a smart contract to buy an ice cream and take you 25 minutes. It's ridiculous. So sometimes it's just not going to be relevant. We're going to have to find the areas where smart contracts are not relevant and just focus on the parts where they are. Okay, do they serve the purpose? Okay, they don't eliminate middlemen. Well, I've explained that. We're going to need more people to help you understand the code. You're going to have to pay lawyers to make sure the code and the written thing that you're looking at, the written contract you're looking at, make sure they both line up. Okay. Okay, to sell your house to a wider market, you still need to promote on a site. You're going to have to pay website. If you're selling a car, you have to use websites. You know what I mean? There's still, these services are still going to be there. You're still going to have to pay them out. Okay, will some be cut out? Absolutely. Let's see. So they basically need to stay basic and autonomous to start with. Nature can cause issues based on time constraints. Okay, I've explained that as well. What if you can't meet your obligations on time? You can't just call up and a service centre to the company and say, look, I'm just going to be a little bit longer. It's going to take me an extra 3 days. Is that all right? And normally they would go, yeah, 3 days is fine. But you can't call up your code. Once you fulfill that contract, they're going to make sure that that's fulfilled. If you don't fulfill that, you pay your penalties. Okay, it might be late, it'll cancel the code, but you have to pay your penalties. That's where they're going to be making extra money. How does it deal with multiple parties to a contract? So what if there's more people to a contract? What if you've got a class of people who want to enter into a bunch of investors who want to buy something? They want to buy a large property. Okay, how is each person's interest calculated in that code? How are you going to have to rewrite that? Is there a standard code for that? Or is each person going to have to do a contract outside of that smart contract, and that smart contract is put through as a group thing? Do you understand what I'm saying? These are the troubles. So the good areas that it looks at: health system for drug regulation and dispensing. Yeah, absolutely. You can regulate who's taking drugs and who's dispensing. You might find some crooked doctors if they're handing out really dangerous medications to people that shouldn't be having it. Well, there's a lot of responsibility. You can chase them up. Same with chemists. If they're dispensing things they shouldn't be dispensing or too much of it, yeah, it allows some regulation there. So I think that's might be a good thing. Small exchanges such as rental agreement bonds. Again, I've talked about that. Bonds, you can put your money in an escrow. It's held there and it gets released once the conditions are met. But that will be depending on, provided you've fulfilled your obligations and looked after the property you're looking after. Medium and large financial transactions and banking, that's already taken care of for the most part. We already have wallets, so that kind of makes you think about whether we really need it in some areas. Okay, so the next element I'm going to look at is just quickly go over. Get rid of that. And we're going to have a look at, now this is under Australian contract law, but most principles of contract are pretty much the same. Okay, so the main elements are offer, acceptance, consideration, and the intention to create a legal relationship. Well, we've seen most of this when we were looking at the code. Okay, if you look at the code, the fact that it's having to approve a function, well, that shows that there is an intent between parties to create a legal contract. So it does address those elements. It doesn't really address what kind of offer, what has been offered for what. Allowances, the spender, return, true. Like I said, I'm not a code reader, and I'm sure they would put in these specific requirements, but the reason the law is so complicated, expensive, and time-consuming is because it requires very fine detail of all these issues. Acceptance. What defines acceptance? What defines consideration? So I'll go down and show you, for example. Offer. It seems facile to say that there must be an offer and that the offer must be accepted. Well, this can kind of be seen in the contract by the fact that there's two elements going in and out. Request response. If then this. Yeah. Let's go down a little bit further. Acceptance. Acceptance is achieved by showing a person making the offer that the term of the offers are agreed to. Okay, this may be done orally, in writing, or this is it, even implied in a form of conduct. Now, a court could rule that simply because you engaged in that smart contract, that you showed an implied intent to conduct business, to be a member of a party to the contract. Okay, but here it is here. The latter mode is hazardous, and an artist should seek or give at least oral acceptance of an offer. Okay, the acceptance must be communicated to the offeror. So there's an element of communication, not just pumping something into a. Remember the example of the vending machine. It's not just about pump money into a vending machine, you get something back. There should be communicated acceptance. Consideration. It's the feature that distinguishes a bargain from a gift. Very important. It's the price. It is a price, not necessarily in monetary terms, that each party asks of the other in return for entering the agreement. This is important because in order to enforce a contract, a party has to show that he or she paid a price. Now, this is one element that the smart contract will probably be very clear on. You have to put something in to get something back. Otherwise, it's not going to respond. Okay? So this can be done in one of two ways. My issue is, though, as we read this, is that you'll see that the smart contract can seriously limit the freedom of contracts in general. Now, a lot of people get upset and say, oh, lawyers take everything, lawyers charge you money. I'm not pro-lawyer, I'm not anti-lawyer. But the point is, a contract is supposed to be broad and free and have maneuverability and a balance between the parties. Okay, balance of power, balance of equalness between the parties. So if you have something where you just put it in and you've got a vending machine and get it back out, is that really a contract? I don't know. I don't think it is. Okay, it's a process, it's a protocol, it's a mechanism. But is it really a contract? Is this code allowing for changes in maneuverability and equity and equality, So it may be shown that at the time of the alleged bargain, one party offered a promise if the other party was to do an act. For example, I'll pay you $500 if you paint my portrait. In this example, one party gives consideration by making a promise, and the other will provide consideration by painting the portrait. Okay. So, in a smart contract, well, can you actually provide a promise? Not really. You have to actually provide something a little bit more substantial for the contract to react. That's my reading of it now. I could be wrong on that. Okay. 2, it may be shown that at the time of the bargain was reached, each party was able to give a promise in exchange for another person's promise. So if you've got promise for promise, well, you can't write something down and put it into the contract. Okay. The smart contract will only respond when there is an initiation, a triggering, and then a reaction or response to the initiated act. Okay. So again, smart contracts are not real contracts. Specifically, they're not proper contracts in the term of legal definition. Can they be written that way? Absolutely, and that will take time. And once again, that will come back to the fact that if there's a dispute, it will take a lot more people and a lot more expense in the courts to clarify who is who, and who has right, who has been wronged in the contract. Okay, so I'm not going to keep going. I think we get the point here. So the contents of the contract, well, they kind of explain it there. Okay, and I'll try and put these links in so you can read them. But consideration, intention to create legal. Okay, if a promise is to be enforceable, it must be shown that it was intended to be legally binding commitment. This excludes mere domestic arrangements such as promise to pay packet money or housekeeping money for those to be enforced in the kitchen rather than in the courtroom. Okay. In contrast, agreements of commercial nature are presumed by the courts to be entered into with the intention of creating a legally enforceable relationship. This presumption is particularly important in the artist-gallery relationship because so many galleries do not have written contracts with the artists they represent. So there's just one area. Okay. Contrary to the common held belief, this does not necessarily mean that there needs to be a contractual relationship between them, so long as there are terms of relationship are sufficient and clear. Offer and acceptance. Okay. So there you see. I'm going to end it there. There are a number of issues around smart contracts. If you're going to be a small business and you're going to be looking at lending through SALT or some of these other companies, or you want to get the numbers crunched and get some loans, so forth, the ones that I've mentioned, and there'll be a lot more others coming, please be careful with what you do. It probably will cost you more in the long run for a time. Eventually, smart contracts are a great idea once they refine it. But I think there's a lot of dangers around it that people are not realizing because they don't know the law, they don't know how contracts fully work, they don't know how coding really works when it's able to be read. So there's a lot of issues here. Bit of a dark area, okay? A lot of grey matter, okay? Bitcoin bankers, please like, subscribe, and share it around. I'm here to help. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.